Almost finished. We have our sleeve. Let's turn it right side out. Right side out. So it should look similar to this. Alright, you got your placket. You got your side seams. Alright, it should look similar to this. It's gathered on the bottom. So now you're going to take your cuff. Okay? Wherever your your right side is, go at the corner, take the corner, and you can open it up a little bit because you have your crease from your iron in there. And now what we're going to do, starting with one end of the placket, we're going to just line up. I'll do it, trying to think of the best way to record. There we go. I'll do it this way. You're going to line up your corner, that side seam, line up that side seam of the cuff with the exact end of your sleeve, all right? And you want to pin. And so now we're going to go all the way around and just pin, pin, pin. Now, what's going to happen where we had our iron, that crease is in there. That's going to be our sew line. All right, so you're going to take your sewing machine and you're going to sew right on top of that line. That's why we had to make sure it was so perfect. All right, so we're just putting pins in here. And look, if you notice one thing about mine, my cuff is too short. What does that mean? That means I didn't gather it enough. So I'm just going to go back here. I left my gathering stitches in there just in case that happened. And I'm going to gather it a little bit more so that my cuff fits completely even. All right. So I'm just pinning, pinning, pinning to hold this thing in place. And then I'm going to sew it. And again, the end of that placket should line up with the side seam of your cuff. Okay, so that's pinned on. Uh-oh, look like we're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere. So again, let's go ahead and let's sew right on that fold line. I don't know if y'all can see mine. That fold line where we pressed it, that's where we're going to sew. So don't forget to back stitch. Let's sew this on. All right, look at that, y'all. Got that cuff on. And you know what I like to say? If you did your gathering right, you should still see one of your gathering stitches in there. All right, we're going to pull that out in a minute. But look at that cuff. Look at how good that cuff is on there. All the way down to the placket. Okay? The cuff is on there. Aligned perfectly with that placket. So now I know you're probably wondering, well, why is this still open? And again, y'all, what you need to do, after you turn it right side down and you make sure you didn't get too much fabric and stuff like that, you need to go in here and serge all of these raw edges. Okay, because you want this to lay good and flat. So you want to serge all of this. You know what? Let me go ahead and serge. All right, here we go. Now, ooh, look at that. Big difference. All right, I cleaned up nice, didn't I? All right, so now what I'm going to teach y'all to do, y'all, with this sleeve, you get a lot of first exposures. So you remember how we evened that up perfectly. Remember how we pressed that down and we evened it up? The reason why is because this is what's going to give you that finished look on the inside. So what I want you to do is take you a thin needle and I want you to put you some thread in it. Just a hand needle. I know what you're probably thinking. Why do I have to use a hand needle? I got a sewing machine. Because you cannot get this detailed. You cannot get this clean of a look All right, you guys, some of your best designers, some of your favorite designers are not this thorough and not this clean with their work. I know, because I do a lot of alterations, and even here on the sleeve, they didn't serge it and the fabric is just fraying, but yet these are some of the favorite designers, all right? So we serged it, and you see my stitch. I did it in orange. You're going to take the top of your cuff, this opening, and you need to cover up that stitch and the serge. So if you kind of put your hand on top, you may want to pin it if this is your first time hand stitching, because what you're going to do, take your needle, go underneath the cuff, and you're barely going to come out. It's hard trying to record and do this. Okay. You can come out a little bit, but you should not see any holes going forward. And I'm just going to tuck that knot underneath there. So what you do is literally the fold. You're putting your needle in there in the fold. And then you're going to take a really, really, really small, not poking all the way through, but a really thin part of your actual fabric. My camera's getting unfocused. Let me hold. You're going to take a really thin part of your fabric, but you're not going to go all the way through. You should not see any thread on the other side. So again, you're poking the fold here. You can go through on there, but when you go down to your fabric, you should literally be taking a small, my camera keys, hold on. Focus, focus, focus. I have to make sure my camera is all the way focused so that you can see what I'm doing. Because on the opposite side, if you notice, you don't see any thread. You shouldn't see any thread on your right side. Okay? So I'm going in the fold of the cuff with my needle, and you can go in and out, and you don't have to be really, really close together with this either. You can do it kind of loose, and you can even just go into a part of your gather on your fabric. But again, you see how I'm pulling through, but on here, you don't see that needle cutting through there. You have to be really, really careful with this. All right, this is how you hand sew. Go in the fold, and you can poke that straight through, and then, and don't forget to cover your stitch. So you just saw my orange. I can even go in part of the gather and pull that out. So basically, all you're doing is you're closing up the cuff. Okay, you're just closing it up. But you don't want it to be tacky. It should be completely hidden to somebody who's just looking at your top. I'm trying to turn it around all different ways so y'all can see what I'm doing here. So it's just small little stitches on the inside, just small little stitches on the inside, but they cannot be seen on the outside. So this is going to take some practice. Really, really thin. I mean, like you're literally trying to grab a piece of the thread on your fabric almost. Now, when you get to a seam, like this is my side seam, it's okay to poke all the way through. And you can even go a couple of times in that seam and connect it to your cuff. That's a good holding point. Good holding point. And then just keep moving. And you want to get you a good motion going. Like if you notice, I go through the fabric, through the cuff, pull, loop it around, through the fabric, barely, through the cuff, pull. Okay? So I'm going to close this thing all the way up. I'm going to do that all the way down. I really wish my camera would stay focused, because I'm taking so thin of a piece of, on the fabric, I'm taking so thin of a piece that you cannot see it on the right side. All right. And then you can poke through the cuff, but you don't want to be like, you know, super out there. You kind of want to grab the fold of the cuff. Okay, so I'm almost finished here. Cover up your thread from where you put your cuff, you sewed the first part of your cuff on, and cover up your serge. And when you make it to that corner, you want to tack that down a couple of times. Hand sewing. I used to hate this in fashion school, y'all. I did not like this part. And don't let your fabric get knotted up. Don't let it gather. You want to kind of tug as you go. You don't have to be real close, you know, like I mentioned. All right, and so I'm almost finished. So you want to close this all the way up. And the way that you knot it is you put your last seam in there, stick in that corner. When you put your last thread in there, you see it's still looped. You just kind of want to go in there and make a knot that way, and then do that twice. Keep in mind, y'all, I'm using black thread only because I'm demonstrating to y'all. Otherwise, it would be the exact same color of my garment. You really don't want this to be noticeable at all. All right, and if you notice in here, it's really not noticeable. But look at how pretty it is. The inside should look just as pretty as the outside, which mine does. Okay, the inside should look just as pretty as the outside, and you don't see any of my black thread up under here. You don't see any of it. So I know that that's hard, and I hope you guys were able to tell. My camera kept getting unfocused, but I hope you were able to tell exactly what I was doing in there. All right, so we're almost finished. If you notice, this, you already know that's going to overlap that. So we're going to put our buttons on next, and we'll be done. And buttons, you have to sew by hand too. All right, so I'll show you how to do that and make it clean. All right, y'all, so I'm here. And what you do next is you want to go ahead and start placing for your buttons and your buttonholes, all right? This can be very, very tedious. I don't like buttons. I have to be honest with you, but I will teach it to y'all. One of the things about me, you might notice, if you've been following me for a while, I don't put buttons on hardly anything because you have to be so patient. So patient, and it's so tedious, and you can easily mess up, and it's not a good feeling, all right? So, anywho, you know where we did our stitch, so one side is automatically overlapping the other, okay? So, the same exact thing for the cuff. Even though your cuff should align perfectly, you know, keep in mind, in order for it to close, something is going to overlap, okay? So, usually the way that it works, the layer on top will have the buttonholes, and the layer on bottom will have the buttons. Now you need to take your measuring tape and you need to just align it, measure this, and see. You know, if you're going to do 4 buttons, you need to do the math. Divide that measurement by 4. You know you don't want anything on the very edge, make a mark that I'm not going to touch this area and this area. I only want my buttons here. However you want to do it. So I made some little dots for my buttons. All right. I have 4 white buttons here. I just picked out white again for demonstration purposes. I messed up a little bit there, but this is what is going to look like when they're on there. You don't want it too close to the edge either, y'all. Give yourself a little bit of space. So push those over. But I wanted my dots there, and then my dots are the exact same over here on this cuff. So I just held it like this. And you see that dot, how those dots align? This one is a little bit off. And don't do this with permanent marker. You need a fabric marker that'll wash off, y'all. Don't do permanent marker. I just do that for demonstration purposes. All right. So the button, I'll show you how to sew. It can be very, very simple. Again, you need your hand needle. Okay, you need your hand needle, single knotted on the end. And let me cut that string. Cut that string as close to that knot as possible, okay? Then what we're going to do, and y'all, a lot of people even place all of their buttons and tape them down. They tape them down. They might even use like a little fabric glue to make sure these things don't move. All right. It will throw off your whole cuff. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go underneath my cuff, and I'm pulling my needle through. Okay. So you see that. Pull that through. Then when you go back in on that part of the button, you want to make sure you're aligned with that dot as close as possible. You see how I put it through, then I brought it back? So literally, you're going to keep coming in this same dot, and you're just going to go from one hole to the other. This will keep it super duper clean. Okay? Super clean is what you want. A lot of people don't know the right way to put on buttons. You see me going through this same little bitty dot. See, this is extra string. I'm going to cut that. But this same dot is what you want to go in. So you're using that one dot, and then you're maneuvering that needle to whichever hole you're on. Okay? So pull that through. Then I'm going to put my needle in there. Just hold it and make sure I'm coming for that same dot. Okay? So you want to do that a few times. Pull it tight too. Make sure it's really, really tight. A lot of times also you see with these different brands and manufacturing companies, when they make clothing, the buttons come off so fast. That's because they're doing it on their machine. I have to be honest with y'all. I could not grasp the concept of doing buttons on the machine. It's a different foot that you have to put on your machine and all of that good stuff. I could not grasp it. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But my teacher, my design teacher, when I went to fashion school, taught me this technique. Okay? So I'm almost finished going into that same dot. I got a little bit off. And the way that you're going to close it up, hand sweating a little bit. Okay, So the way that you're going to close it up, this is going to be my final stitch. So you're going to go back into that dot. Y'all look at how small and how clean that is. So when you go in there, you're just going to maneuver your needle into that dot, literally, as deep as you can in that dot and in that fabric. I can't. Hold on. I'm not trying to break it. There we go. Maneuver your needle in there. Hook it through there. And now you have a single knot right on top of that dot. So I'm going to take both of those pieces, and you might want smaller scissors, and cut. Have you ever seen a button that clean? Have you ever seen a button on the opposite side that small? No. All right, so you learned it here first. You learned it here. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is a buttonhole. Okay, you do the buttonhole on your machine. Let me show you.